Hello, today I'm going to make a little flower. So it's going to have a copper head and then just a steel stem to it. Let's get straight into it. For the petals of the flower, I'm going to use this little piece of copper. So I've got a template for a flower and I'm going to stick that on just with some super glue and hopefully I can cut it out. I'll see if I can do it with some tin snips, but I might have to use an angle grinder. I'm hoping I can do it with tin snips, but we'll see. Let's see if it'll cut with these. Hopefully it will. Just about. I'll just work my way around. Hopefully I can cut these bits out as well a little bit. We'll see. I'm careful. Don't chop my fingers off. I actually ended up taking a file just to remove this material here, as I found that those snippers or shears weren't quite getting a nice rounded edge. So it was just nice and quick with the file. It's copper, so it's soft. What I'm going to do now is take a chisel and just come in on each of the petals and just cut in, as the file leaves it quite abrupt. And so coming in with a file just makes it a bit more natural. Sorry, coming in with a chisel makes it a bit more natural. I'm going to mark the middle now, which I'm just going to guess, which isn't the best way to mark the middle of anything. I should have really put a dot on the template that I'm using, but I'll do that in future flowers. But for this one I'll just guess. I've drilled the hole. I'm going to now heat it up, burn off the template and all the super glue and all the nastiness, and then texture it with a cross beam all the way along each petal just to give it some life, which will also distort that hole that we've drilled. So I'm going to probably have to re-drill it to 4mm before we then rivet it on to the other piece. I'm going to start the stem by using just a couple of 6mm bars to section off the material for the tenon, which we can then use to rivet the flower head onto. Coming on the near edge of the anvil, just going to carefully work this material down for the tenon. Just get it a bit more central, there we go. Just carefully working it down, square, octagon, round, simple. 4mm is what I'm aiming for, ish. So what I'm going to do now is come in just behind the shoulder of that tenon and make another isolation. Draw this material down so the stem is 4mm as well as the tenon. And then I'm going to do some things with a couple of dies just to smoosh this material together so it's all the transition between tenon bit of material and the stem is nice and square and sharp and whatever. I'll explain it in a little bit. It's a bit hard to explain at the moment. I'm going to knock these corners down now and form an octagon, which I can then roll to create, you know, a round stem to this flower stem. I've cut it off the bar now, and you can see we've got 4mm there, 4mm there, and then a little bit of isolated material in the middle. What I'm going to do now is use these. I've never done this before, it's just an idea in my head, so it might not work. Put the 4mm into that 4mm hole. This die goes over the top, piece of pipe over there, and squash this down, upsetting that material which we have left there, creating a square shoulder on either side. So effectively these are monkey tools. Create a square shoulder either side with just a little bit of material left, which we can put the flower onto, holding, so when we rivet this over, it catches and holds on nice and tightly. Let's give it a go. Let's see if this is gonna work. The upsets knocked it off from square. So let's see. I may have to file it a little bit and then upset it, maybe. I'll have a think. So I've filed each side now, so hopefully it's a bit squarer. That doesn't look very square. I don't know, maybe it's okay. We'll see. Working a little bit better. I think I'll take another heat. So that didn't really work very well. What I've done now is I've just filed it square rather than using those dies. I think it's because the dies themselves aren't quite cut square, or maybe it was because I didn't have the pipe quite square to the dies or something, and so they kept on getting offset to the side and rhombusing. So I've just filed it. It's not quite as good as I hoped. You know, I really wanted to do it with those dies and get it nice and thin, so it's a bit thicker than I would have liked, but they're nice and square. So let's now do the flower and then rivet that on the end. To texture this up, I'm just coming in with the crossbeam and just moving around like that, sort of in an arc on each petal, rather than just going straight across. Just makes it look a bit more natural. So I've just annealed this, heated it up to a red, quenched it in water, and that makes it nice and soft. I'm gonna now sink it to give it a little bit more shape, just into a wooden block. Carefully. What I'll do now is I'll just bring each of these petals back, just so they flow nicely out of the flower. Okay, I've cut the tenon to length. You know, it's very small now because this is really thin. So that is going to go into the vise, and I'm going to take a ball fuller and just carefully rivet that over. Not hammering with this, obviously. Hammering on the end of it. I enjoyed making this little flower. I would have liked it if I could have got that little bit behind the tenon a little bit thinner. It was just a bit thick, and so I need to do a little bit more thinking on the dies and making sure they're square and then that I'm square as I'm upsetting that material. What was happening was I was getting a rhombus basically, and so I couldn't really do anything else once that rhombus began to form other than file it back and then try and upset it again, but then I was getting a rhombus again. So I ended up just filing it square. So it's a little bit thicker than I would have liked, but it still works and it's still a nice little flower. It's nice and delicate with the 4mm, you know, actually making it nice and thin, you know, make it as thin as possible almost, the stem. And so it's nice and light and like an actual flower, I suppose. Anyway, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you soon.